name is Tony Price. I'm the Senior Web Design Manager here at EarthLink. Small business needs a website because it enhances their ability to reach more people. And you can go so far with, an Instagram presence and other social media presences to where you can get a certain amount of followers and understanding and just brand recognition and that kind of stuff. But a website's really going to help you with search engine results and people who are still more computer-based and even on the phone, people still search. People use the Google app, things like that, to where it really just expands your ability to be reached by any number of people, audiences all over the world. So you could certainly get by without one, but it's really hurting you if you don't have one because you're really limiting your audience to just a certain number of people, where a website can just expand that even more. It's really a win-win situation. A small business person could get started with a website in a number of ways. There's very hands-on ways that you can do it all yourself, where you can go to a place that basically has all the code functionality built into kind of a WYSIWYG, almost kind of like a drag and drop, where you can it has like a kind of a rough template in place, and you can change out the text or the images how you want. Some of them are very complex and beautiful and have all kinds of layouts that you can choose from, different themes you can choose from. And there's a number of online kind of sources that can provide that thing that you're looking for, as far as something you can, almost like it's just a visual thing. You kind of just see it and put it there, as opposed to having to worry about HTML or CSS or JavaScript or all that kind of kind of fancy jargon that you hear about when making a website. But it's not necessary now because the tools have become so much easier to use than they were, even 5-10 years ago. And you can really build a beautiful website and without knowing any code at all. It's really nice. Yeah. Accessibility in a website is very important. Like I was talking about with audiences being able to reach a broad number of people, accessibility falls in that same lane, to where, but as opposed to like demographics, with like race, age, and those kind of things, you get people that may or may not be able to see very well or have full use of their hands or things like that. So you want to make websites accessible to those folks as well. You don't want to limit your website to not be able to reach those people, because a lot of people have vision problems. They're not blind necessarily, but they have some form of color blindness, or they just have really low, poor vision. And being able to reach those people as well, not exclude them by making the website inaccessible with bad navigation or not having a search functionality that works really well, and low contrast, things like that can really hamper a person's experience on the website and make it so where they can't even use it at all. So like if you have a form and they're using their keyboard to tab through the fields instead of using the mouse to kind of control it. So if you don't have that functionality in there, it can be very difficult for them. And that's just a lost customer, in addition to being very frustrating for them, which we don't want either. So it was really just, it's almost a standard now to have accessibility built into a website. You'll find still websites that aren't accessible in some places, and that's okay, because a lot of them are easy to fix, and you can point those out, and they'll be able to fix them. But really, it's important to try and cast as big of a net as you can for anybody that needs it, whether it's blindness or hearing problems or unable to use their hands with the mouse and things like that. So it's just, accessibility is one of those things that's almost like a must now with websites, especially things like color contrast, being able to read the text. Contrast on the background is very important. So, without those things, a website is very difficult to use for a very high percentage of people out there. We don't want that. So accessibility can be addressed in many ways on a website. So say it's an older site that hasn't been updated in a few years, and maybe the person who developed it didn't really focus on accessibility as an issue. So there's tools out there like Wave, WAVE, that you can Google search for that and find it's really helpful. Like basically you can just put in an address or URL of a website, and it will give you all the issues that it finds on the page, where there's color contrast, content isn't organized correctly to where like a person using a screen reader will be able to understand it. And it basically breaks those down into categories and groups them together where you can kind of pinpoint where you've gone wrong in your website. And it's tools like that that can really help you kind of better understand how you can, if you are a web developer or designer that is using HTML and CSS and things like that, it really helps you find, places where you maybe missed a thing or two here and there. It happens. No one's perfect. There's no website out there that's perfectly accessible. So um, it's tools like that, which even have like a Chrome extension where you can just plug it in to your browser and just with one click you can see kind of places that were missed. So um, the Wave tool is my favorite one, but there's plenty of ones out there. There's ones that are more specific that if you just want to know the color contrast that you're using, or you punch in the color for the text and the background, and it'll tell you if it has a high enough contrast for a user. So many tools out there, and those are my favorite ones to use that really help me see things that maybe our developers missed, or maybe I missed it as a designer. So, because there's lots of places along the way where those issues can come up, and those tools are super helpful. Choosing a domain name is one of the harder things to do. It has nothing to do with code or with or with like any sort of super specific skill set. It's really just a matter. It's more of a branding and marketing and visibility kind of thing, because you want the domain name to represent your business. You want it to represent. You want it to be easy enough to where you can represent yourself in marketing materials. It's got to be easy to read. You don't want it too long, so people aren't having to type out a long username or a long domain name and possibly mistype it and not find your site. So mostly I try to think about how people are going to type it out. If it's easy to type out, if you can use it in marketing to where it's easy to read on advertising, and make sure that if you have like a name that has more than one word in it, make sure those words when they're read together can't be read as two different kind of words. Because there's been some faux pas in the past where it can be misread as something that maybe you don't want associated with your business. Things like that. There's little things like that that maybe you don't think about when choosing a domain name, that are important when it comes to when you actually sit down and pay for this domain and you start using it, that don't come up and you're kind of embarrassed by it. So also, choosing the extension is a big thing too, like .com, .edu, .org, .net, those kind of decisions, because they've really increased the number of extensions that exist now. There's all kinds, some that are very specific to certain kinds of businesses. So that one of those might be better for you. But really the best one is always going to be .com. You really can't go wrong with that one. So the best thing to do is to go to a domain finder, punch in the domain you want, and see if it's available. And if it's available and it fits, checks all those boxes that you need, go ahead and buy it if it's available. Otherwise, you might have to find the person who owns it, and they might be willing to sell it for a certain amount. So just be ready to pay more than just the $15 or whatever it costs. But it's definitely one of the more important things that people overlook. I typically try to avoid anything with like a dash in it, because that can throw people off and it kind of looks weird too. And just as long as it's not too long, that's the main thing, and it's easy to read when it's typed out, and no dashes. That's my main things. Yeah. You can design a site without knowing much about coding for sure. The best thing to do is find a provider like, there's a number of them out there. There's things like WordPress and such that provide templates and themes and stuff like that, where you can get started with a design without really knowing much about design and really knowing anything about code. There are others that have a lot of built-in drag and drop features where you can kind of move things around and change things, and you can definitely change your content, swap out images, things like that. And without knowing really any code at all, you just have to be able to have a little bit of tech savvy as far as like being able to handle a computer. If you can edit a Word document or a PowerPoint, or know your way around programs like that, you can pretty much make a website with the tools that are out there. You might have to do a little searching to find what you're looking for, but there's a number of options out there that will provide themes and other sort of like tools to let you build a page and eventually an entire site. My name is Tony, and I'm an EarthLinker.